Good morning. All right, welcome to another round Wales Darby for webinar series. You got myself, Rick Koester, and Anthony Tosi over here to my left.
Hey y'all. Good morning.
So today we're going to talk about a topic that's, I guess, growing really with us since, what we say, 2 years or so? About 2 years with Electro.
Oh no, it's longer.
Longer? What are you
Yeah.
saying?
I'm going with close to four.
Close to four?
Close to four. Double that.
So we'll double that. It's a product that we've been growing with a lot lately. A lot of good conversations. Spent a lot of time with friends at Electro the last couple of weeks. You know, had them in town. Made a lot of visits. Seen a lot of companies start to prepare, which is an awesome thing for electric. So that's something that's not going to go away. So we're going to talk a little bit about the product line today, so the application, maintenance of the system compared to what we're typically used to. So not terribly long today, probably about an hour. So appreciate everybody that's here. If you could do us a favor and just throw in a chat, you know, where you're tuning in from today, and then you can hear us as well.
Yeah,
so,
I actually should say hello.
I did great.
Hi, how are you?
So Anthony will be here. We'll both got monitoring some questions, so please fire them out there. You know, we have fun with these webinars. You know, have more fun when you guys are interactive, and that's why we're here, right, for you guys. So, you know, just to touch on a couple things as we go forward.
Just to lead off and having an open mind about what this product line really offers, you need to focus on application, and sometimes being the solution is not having the fossil fuel because of venting. Venting is a big to do, where this simplifies and minimizes and even space requirements. It's really something that kind of made me a believer here on Long Island, where electric is quite expensive. So just understanding there should be some questions coming at us, and I'll be more than happy to do my best to answer them.
Yeah, I think, you know, all the
or even after the fact, our information's on the screen there. If you have a cell phone, I don't know if later you have anything later, but just if you want, those are our email addresses for sure.
Yeah, I'll have it at the end. At the end, you guys be able to scan out QR. I appreciate that, Henry. We got some audio things going this morning, but I can hear myself, so I think we're good with audio. But if you are having problems, you know, please, you know, just check your devices as well. But appreciate that.
And please be aware in the handouts as well. We do have our line sheet, which is manufacturers. There you go, and the catalog. So some things for you to take with you as reference. And again, if you didn't get our information on the first slide, or if later we have it, you got to leave. You have the line sheet as well with our contact information, Contractor Services Group, Rick Costa, myself, and Anthony Tosi. All right.
Like I said, we'll have a QR codes with our information at the end, so we'll take some more questions.
Yeah. Sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Yeah, we're gonna have some fun, you know. And who thought, you know, at this point in 2023, I never thought in my career we'd be talking about electric boilers, you know, let alone installing one. And the phone calls that we're getting, you know,
I'm selling two a week at this point. Planting seeds, and like amazing to see the end results. People are calling me, and I would never think. The guy at the end of the phone saying, I want to talk about electric boilers.
Right? Yeah, pretty cool. So we've had a lot of fun, like I said, over the last couple of months, if not year or two here, you know, with, you know, just getting into your guys' faces and showing you what we offer here with Electro. So like Anthony said, we got some handouts there. You know, you got the whole hour here to pull them out of their line sheet. And then that's the new 2023 catalog, which kind of encompasses everything that Electro has to offer. So we're going to go over a couple of those pieces today, and you know, we're looking to do, if you're on Long Island, you're local to us in Wales Darby, you know, we're looking to put something together, you know, more, you know, I guess more technical, more broad, you know, training, you know, just on these
full court press. So we're going to go over the whole details. Yeah. Today's a little teaser. We'll have some fun with this, get you guys thinking, and then of course locally we would like to invite, and we'll get information out to those who can attend our training session.
Yeah, welcome, Joseph. Thank you. Coming from West Virginia. Huh? Very cool. So a little bit about Electro, as you can see here, you know, in front of you. You know, they're not a brand new company. They've been around since 1974, second generation, family owned right now. So right over in Minnesota. So that's something you'll see quite a bit on these slides going forward. You know, made in America, right? Right in Minnesota. So it is local to us, which is nice. 90% of everything you're going to see today, they produce themselves within their facility, and then one of the things I think they kind of hang a hat on is lead times, right? So I think there's within 4 weeks on any product there at this point. So it's pretty cool. So we're going to look at, you can see here the products that they do have to offer, everything from electric boilers. We're going to talk a little bit about the air and the water today. And then the air side is a whole nother, plenum heaters, makeup air, another product that we spent a lot of time on lately. I had a phone call yesterday as I was kind of getting out of here. And, 2 makeup air units, if not more, different applications, it is a code. So we'll talk about that briefly. And all boilers, as you can see there, if that's something that concerns you certification-wise, they are all H-stamped vessels, ETL, if you're into the commercial, and CSA for industrial, right? So
ASME.
and ASME, correct. That would be that H-stamp, right? So
Yes, H-stamp qualifies boiler versus a water heater, but ASME is a pressure rated vessel for 60 PSI and higher. I think that's the number.
some commercial. We do have, this is just a quick look at the website. So if you haven't had an opportunity, if this is your first time here at Electro, I challenge you after this webinar, go take a look on their website, electromn.com. A lot of great information there. You can find brochures, installation manuals, anything that you need information-wise that's not in that catalog in your handouts. And then you can also find, some stuff. We're doing a webinar today. It seems popular. We've been doing this for a long time now. So plenty of these webinars in place. We are recording these, so you do have access, and I'll have a little plug at the end of where you can find them. But Electro in a whole, they're doing the webinars just as much as we are, right? So every other Thursday, 10 a.m. Central Time. Is that an hour before us, 11 o'clock outside?
Yeah, they do a nice job.
Yeah, they do a great job over there. We've had a lot of fun with them, and they record theirs as well, which you can find on the website. You can register for them on the website, which is cool. I believe there's one tomorrow, right?
Yep.
So talking about
They're doing their mini boiler, the new version.
Right, and that's one of the first ones we're going to take a quick look at today. So we talk about electric, and I know most people initially the first thing that comes to mind is cost, right? Yeah, we are in one of the, like you said before, Anthony, right? It's the highest electrical rates in the country, but there's so many different applications where we do fit in, where it is cheaper, to operate, especially when we start talking about oil at over, $6 a gallon. And,
yeah, bottom line, what isn't expensive today? Any kind of fuel. So look at comparison to install, labor, talent, pool, and then again, efficiencies. Anything electric doesn't have a byproduct of fuel, which is a waste. So X amount of cents per dollar go up or leave the building without being utilized. So 100%, man, that's kind of impressive.
Yeah.
And more.
Right?
And more
products. Right? Get into the door arrow for 300% in some cases. But,
incredibly efficient.
and I think a lot of people initially, when we hear electrification and everything, they just think they're losing everything, right? That might be the end-all game plan for the government and everybody else. We're not going to get political today, but I think there's a lot of applications where we can kind of fit in together as a hybrid system, and get the best efficiencies out of both systems, So, we have a lot of friends out there in the oil business, right? We want to keep them in business as well. So that's where we kind of fit hand in hand with each other, and then we're able to kind of switch over. And then what's nice on some of these systems, as we'll see, is, the homeowners have control of it for the most part, and they can choose what fuel they want to utilize.
People talk out of both sides of their mouths, right? So the idea is air source heat pumps have been growing and everyone got on board. But don't tell me that this now isn't, that isn't electric and this is.
Right.
It's all electric.
Electric's electric.
Electric's electric.
But you see some of the value of electric heating products here, and you start thinking, and these are the kind of the talking points that we talk about every day. When we're talking with you guys as contractors, as distributors and stuff, engineers, but like I said, 100% efficient, utilizing the air to water, we can reach some efficiencies up into 300s, which is pretty cool. Electric's becoming greener every day. It's true. A lot of I was having this conversation with some guys in training yesterday where, they saw the electric boiler and, we had a little education moment there. We were just kind of talking it up and, everybody thinks this thing's just turn it on like a light switch and this thing's drawing all kinds of crazy power and that scares them, So it's an education, it's understanding how these things operate. So I hope you guys get that today. You know, safe and clean we talk about, right? Carbon monoxide detectors is a huge thing when we talk about fuel. You know, whether it's oil, gas, we don't have to worry about that. We don't produce any carbon monoxide. Quiet, you know, there's no fans, there's no anything that's going to make noise within that system. Maybe a circulator. Right? So
Sure.
very, very quiet. Definitely simpler installation. So we'll take a look at that stuff. Reliability, you know, 20-year warranty. What's cool is it's an element, right? There's not much to go wrong. You know, a lot of safeties, which we're going to see in a few minutes, go through that. So good labor savings there as well. So this is a word that we've heard for quite a while now, right? Beneficial electrification, right? Those are, and decarbonization. We've heard these words over and over again, and it scares the crap out of us, you know, but at the same time, it gives us opportunity. You know, there's tons of it out there. And if you're adapting your business, hopefully you are, you're positioning yourself. And I think that's some of the conversations we've had where, you know, we got guys calling, I want to say almost every day, you know, this is what I need to know about it. I want to learn about it.
Sure.
You know, I have customers asking. I think that's probably the bigger topic there is whether you want to do it or not, your homeowners want to do it. You know, they're hearing it, whether they know they really want to do it or they just want to do it because they're hearing it from somebody else. You know, it's going to be a topic, and they're going to ask questions, and hopefully you guys have those answers. You know, and if not, you have us. You have our number. You give us a call, and we would love to have those conversations with your homeowners. You know, so there's some things to learn, obviously. You know, if we're talking efficiency, anytime you put efficiency into the conversation, we got to do the right thing. Right? We started with load calculations. You know, that has to happen. You know, we can't fly by with just throwing a, you know, 100,000 BTU, 120,000 BTU boiler because that's what we've done for the last 30 years. You know, there's some math that has to be done, and we can talk about that a little bit more. So, like I said, you know, we talk about electrification, and you can. I thought this map was pretty cool, and it's not a voting map. It almost looks like it, right? Republicans, Democrats, blue, red. Right? But these are. Oops, sorry, one slide. So these are the states that have kind of put some measures in place, or they're entertaining them. The blue, you can see the adopted states there. Let's see if this little laser pointer works today. So here you go. You got in the darker red are the states that have already passed legislation on, you know, these natural gas bans and stuff like that. You can see the states that have adopted it and states that are in development. Where we are in the Northeast, right? It's no secret. You know, they're developing these programs every day to kind of ban gas. You know, they're starting at buildings. What, you know, we talk about local 197 in New York City, where we are. You know, it's crazy. I never thought. You know, I remember when they did it with restaurants and grading them on their cleanliness and their business, and now they do it for energy.
Yeah. You
know, within the city, and to walk past the building and see an energy grade of a D. You know, it might come with some hefty fines right now. $750,000. I was at one recently. There's $750,000 in fines a year that they're just passing on to their tenants right now until they start upgrading and making that building more efficient. So that's where these conversations are coming in. Henry, great question. We are definitely going to get to that as we go along here. So appreciate that. Definitely a big part of it. It's going to be a short conversation, I'll be honest with you. So it's going to be good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when we talk about electric in general, right, whether it's, you know, our electric boilers, the heat pumps, you know, it's really the only fuel source out there that's compatible with solar, you know, plays friendly with solar. You know, we're seeing a lot more of that, especially in our territory. There's some incentives out there, obviously, to put these panels on your roof, and, you know, why not utilize that electricity we can produce in a home to actually heat and provide maybe domestic hot water and cooling. So
renewable energies is one of our options.
Yeah,
good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when we talk about oil and gas, you know, yeah, there's some electricity to run those units, but, you know, the main fuel source there is the gas and the oil. Right? So yeah, the electric's always going to play friendly with solar. So, you know, when we talk about Electro in general and the product families that they offer, you know, this is a nice little screenshot of, you know, their product line. You know, we start with the boilers. You know, it's a conversation. I remember when we first, you know, started talking about Electro and introducing it to some of our contractors and distributors. I remember, Anthony, you had a first experience with it with the makeup air unit. You know, going to talk to people at makeup air because we thought that would be probably the product of choice for us, and it wasn't. Right? It was an electric boiler that kept being popped up. You know, I want to know about that. I want to know about that.
Yeah, Yeah, the product was in our territory before it became the rep, so I kind of just did some deep dive on what was being sold, and we were buying it in the air, the makeup air was a code-driven product. So now I go to speak to these guys, introduce myself. They all know me, but now as Electro, and all I wanted to do was talk about the electric boiler, and I was like, whoa. I was just totally taken back by the importance of their business to be in the know before it happened, you know. And I tell you, steadily, it's the makeup air moves. It's still, you know, for houses out here that are being built for ventilation purposes, but the boiler is really something I'm tapping into. It's moving.
Yeah, no, for sure. You know, so these are the product families we're going to go over. We're not going to get in depth with every single one of them. We're going to save that for, you know, future training that we're putting together as we speak. But we're going to start off today with talking about the boilers. And like I said, you know, obviously the H stamp up there, we just talked about 20-year warranty on residential systems, which is mainly what we're talking about today. When you start looking at the warranties and stuff like that, you know, that was always the first question. I had that yesterday as well. You know, what's the warranty on it? What are the elements, the stuff? 20 years on the vessel, 20 years on the elements themselves. Some of the cool things with the elements is, you know, they had that beefed up a little bit more, but in a pinch, if you had to replace one and you had one fail, which is, you know, not often, you know, it's pretty rare that you have an element fail. But when you get needed one, you can, in a pinch, go run out and grab an element from a water heater and an electric water heater, and you're good to go. At least get the boiler up and running. So repairs are very minimal, pretty easy at this point too. So all electro boilers, there's no primary, secondary piping. So it makes it a lot easier for you guys when you're adding these to a system, or you know, they already have something currently and you're adding this as a boost, or you're adding this as supplemental, whatever the case is. You know, when we're sizing out circulators, and it's something we do a lot, right? Take-O, obviously. You know, the boiler really doesn't even come into play when we're talking about the flow rate. You know, not flow rate, but the resistance, right? Pressure doesn't come in. Yet pressure drop through this thing is so low, and you can see the circled image there as an example. You know, if I was flowing just about 5 GPM, a little less than 5 GPM through this heat exchanger, I got a 0.01 pressure drop through, you know, so that makes, you know, doesn't hurt the circulator one bit. So makes it a little easier to size. And some of our boilers already have the circulators in there, which you'll see as we kind of go forward. So. Redundant safeties, right? Every time we talk about electric, you know, you're going to have different limits, stuff like that. They're built in there on the top of the boiler. 190-degree auto reset and a 205 manual. You can see that little tab there on the right of the screen. So if you did trip at that 205 mark, figure out what's going on in the system and making that temperature rise like that, and now we can just manually reset it from there. So easy service, you know, that's one of the nicer things I like to see coming out of the field. You know, when we open these things up for the first time, you know, it's not like the wall-mount boilers where you got to move and finagle things out of the way and rip this thing apart to get to parts and pieces. Everything's right there in front of your face, you know, from the relays, the electric elements underneath the machine, to the safeties up top, you know, basic piping. It's really such a simple system to put together.
Yeah, I was going to say the simplicity is really what makes it kind of, you know, really attractive, because it's plenty of space. I mean, the clearances you look at, the biggest clearance I would say is just how do I get to the elements if I should need to. And that's about an 18 inches from the bottom. Our elements are from the bottom up into the vessel. So, and it's a standard element as far as the tapping. So in emergencies, we have some backups off the shelf if we should need.
Right.
Get them through the night or the week or whatever until we get the other replacements.
Very good, very good. So another cool thing with Electro is they build all their own boards, right? So when there is, you know, different additions and stuff like that. As you can see here, just as an example, this isn't the same board in every boiler, but this gives you a good idea on some of the options we have. You know, you can see, I left this slide in here just for this one point here. The talking point today is there's your standby boiler, right? So the connection process to integrate this into your existing system is very simple. You know, 2-wire integration, 2 zones on some of the 4 zones on another. So these kind of come into like zoning relays almost as well, depending on the boiler and the package you're working with. But you know, there's a lot of cool things we can do with that. Who would have thought outdoor sensors, right? So outdoor reset on some electric boilers as well, right? So talking about, you know, efficiencies, that's a conversation. There is some options there, as you can see in the bottom left there. If we have any type of utility metering, I guess you can call it, you know, we have the option there to kind of work friendly with those guys. and then onboard circulator relays, stuff like that. So, maybe you want to comment?
Just the fact that everything is in-house. They've been doing this since 1974. As far as some of the sophistication, I always say it is not a light switch, so don't think because it's a 20 kW, piece of equipment that it goes from 0 to 100 like that. It's modulating, it's staging. There's some really cool benefits as to, again, that 100% efficiency and probably, just a long lasting maintenance-wise we'll get into. Yeah, there's a lot of like check boxes that all of a sudden my eyes started opening wider and wider thinking, I was just locked down on no electric in my world.
Yeah.
So it's pretty incredible to see,
right? Application
wise.
Yeah, this is a cool product here. We actually just got our hands on one, the small guy, the little 1.5 kW boiler. We utilized on one of our displays that we'll be rolling around with Takeo display. So we got that thing kind of live fired now with Electro Boiler. Pretty cool to put a boiler on and not have to put venting or add a fuel. It's plug it in. For this one, it's a 115 volt, 15 amp circuit. You plug this thing in, and immediately this diagram pops in my head because this is the perfect application when you get those master bedrooms on a second, third floor, or that master suite. If you want to add radiant in there. Now you're probably 3/4 of the way through the job, and you got to route tubing from a mechanical room up here, basically add this to your system. I could throw this in a closet. You give me a little bit of space, maybe an attic or something like that.
Conditioned space would be fine.
Yeah, conditioned space, 100%. Now we can get in here, run an outlet, dedicated 15 amp circuit, run our line up there, fill this thing, bleed it out. Really, I don't need a water line around there once it's sealed.
Bathroom,
sealed,
grab a bathroom maybe.
Yeah,
tap into that.
Tape right into the bathroom. That's a good idea. And here you go in this situation. This diagram showing 2 manifolds. There's your master bathroom and your bedroom. It's pretty wild to be able to do something like that and not have to worry about the venting. I think that's probably the biggest conversation there. Is that can be no penetrations through the house. You're not running a gas line up.
No plume or exhaust leaving. Very big to do.
Yeah, so this little the platform that you see there, the boiler footprint, 4,700 BTUs to 61,000, so that comes out to about 1.5 kW to 18 kW. And I think that's another change that we're trying to adapt to, and finally, kind of the lingo is getting there. It's becoming more natural now. We've talked about BTUs our whole life, and now we're talking kW, right? So the conversion's pretty easy. I'll let you plug what's the BTU number per kW.
Yeah, I'm playing nice with Dennis.
Isn't working.
Yeah, 1 kW equals 3413 BTUs. So think about some of our loads and how small they can get, and then you put some other byproduct in there, they can't get small enough. So typically we're grossly oversized on maybe what our source is. And here you have something that literally could be 1.6 kW. And I think these are the newer models. I think the previous one, they had a 1 kW mini. And It's pretty impressive to think how small we can actually now be at 100% efficient and all the benefits that Rich just kind of stated. No noise, no venting, in a closet, so it really starts to open up some eyes and thinking multifamily, everyone's independent, they pay electric, so all of a sudden it's like, it really develops into something more. So get your caps on, think of applications. You might be thinking of one right now, you have a problem, and all of a sudden this becomes that solution. Neat stuff.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about Fujitsu lately, right? We spend a lot of time with Fujitsu. We do multi-position air handler, and one of the additions to that has been hydrocoil. Everybody wants to put a hydrocoil on. If somebody's going fully electric and there's no boiler down there, to produce any type of hydronic heating, this is a great option. I can dedicate this one boiler to the hydrocoil as a supplemental backup heat. Control it right through your system. So that's something we've had a lot of conversations about lately. I don't have to be down in the mechanical room. Again, if I can insulate and do what I got to do to keep this in a somewhat conditioned space, then I think that'd be pretty cool. It does have some zoning capability on them. The 2 zones, right, with a priority zone. So it could be 180 degrees as my priority, and then my second zone could be radiant, 100 degrees, 120 degrees, which is pretty cool.
Literally last night got a call. I'm doing a startup leaving here, but I had a call from a guy who did his install, maybe the third, fourth one. And he said, he called me to tell me, hey, I did the startup on an electric boiler. I said, great, which job was that? Great. He goes, the indirect 40 some odd gallon turned over in 15 minutes. That cold start, brand new.
Okay,
I'm like, that's impressive.
that's pretty cool.
You know, bringing up a temperature like that. And I forget what the KW he had on that job, but he was happy enough and he wanted to share with me. He called me at like 7 o'clock last night.
Yeah, we're gonna do more with this little guy here. Obviously, having it on display, being able to bring it around, show you guys how it operates. It's 100% running, so you get to see all the features of it. You know, the relays, all of that stuff. You know, some nice indicators, as you can see down here. There's a little screen, kind of gives us an idea on what's going on in the system. Safety-wise, you got a temperature dial up here as well at the top of that. And then down below, we can see what relays are on and whether it's a circulator relay, is it the elements, you know, all of that stuff. So depending on the boiler and how many elements it has, it will stage the elements there so you can see which one's on there too. So from the mini boiler now we get into the TS, you know, we got our mid-size TS-CX boilers. So these could be modulating boilers or staging boilers, right? So we have two different types here. So our modulating, you'll see in the MX, WXDX series. They're good for high, low mass applications, up to 180 degrees. So, you know, it's a boiler, right? So it's not, we're not talking heat pump yet where we're restricted on temperature, but, you know, we can't get stuck on temperature because the temperature is not the talking point. It's the BTUs, you know, and we've got trained over the years, and it was so funny, had an oil company in yesterday doing some training on another product line, and we were talking about this Electro Boiler, and, you know, they saw it in a room. And the first thing I said was, all right, you know, 120 degrees, you know, well, how do I do that? Why did we always do 180? You know, and here's a guy that's been in the business for 25 years. He said, you know, and he said, why do we do 180? Great question. Why do we do 180? You know, and that was the conversation. And it's like, it's BTUs. You know, if I can give you a piece of equipment and a terminal unit, whether it be radiant heat, you know, and that's where the conversation always turns to, because radiant, what type of we're running that for? 100 degrees, 115 degrees, you know, maybe some of the radiant applications is a little bit higher, 120, you know, but we're heating houses all day long with radiant, you know, we're doing it with air to water or with hydronic air handlers at 120 degrees, you know, it's not the temperature, it's the BTUs, right? So, you know, I think we all get these phone calls, and I got another one I got to follow up on where we get the call, I need 120,000 BTU boiler, you know, and the first question is why? Do you have a load calculation to back that up? And there has to be, because in most cases, you know, when we talk about, especially playing now with the oil boilers, what's the smallest oil boiler you've ever seen? You know, I'm curious, you know, put it in the chat, you know, what's the smallest, you know, you get a Peerless, I know you're talking on a low firing rate, you know, what are we, about 100,000 BTUs, you know? When you actually do the manual J calculation, and Dave and I from, Dave Holdorf from TACO and I were having this conversation last week, you know, when we do a manual J calculation, a lot of these programs, like even a TACO program that's on their website, they got a fudge factor built into them as well. That could be as high as 20%, you know, so like I did mine with two different programs, my personal house, a little just shy of 1,200 square feet, you know, 34,000 BTUs as a heating load, you know, there's no 34,000 BTU cast iron boiler out there. So when we start to look at these houses and these candidates, I guess you can call them, these, you know, houses that could potentially go electric, or at least the addition of electric boiler, you know, I think there might even be a slide coming up here. I think I left it in here. But when we look at what we can do, we don't have to do the whole road. We look at, you know, we're designing off of the coldest day of the year, which now it's our territory, New York, Long Island over here. We're about 15 degrees. Is that something you're using, Ant? 15 as a number?
Yes.
Is it design? So 15-degree design day, but we hit that a handful of, not even days, it's hours, you know, when you look at the bin data on the temperatures that we're actually seeing. So to actually design a boiler for that day, it doesn't make any sense. You know, we can do 80% of the winter, you know, and downsize that boiler a little bit and still provide comfort, and then hand it off maybe to an oil boiler to make up the difference. That's where you're going to be successful. You know, when you start looking and, you know, thinking you're going to match nameplate to nameplate, you know, this is, maybe we got to have some more conversations, you know, before we start buying this product. But, you know, the load calc is going to be key. You need to know what we're replacing, you know, and not boiler wise, BTU wise. So, like at my house, I probably could have went with a 25,000 BTU boiler, which is insane. So got some questions coming in?
Well,
Anything you wanna
I
touch
guess
on?
someone are more concerned about the cost of operating, you know. Here, Chris is asking, the focus here needs to be more about operating costs.
Yeah,
Well, we have some opportunities to show you the differences and when there's a balance point. There's also some things about having renewables and then why you want to go electric versus maybe fossil fuel.
Yeah.
And then you have the option to switch when you need it.
Yeah.
You know, and this is, again, we're giving people redundancy, we're giving them choices.
Yeah.
They're educating themselves, they're worried about their energy, you know, comfort dollars and where they're being spent.
Yeah.
So if they have solar panels, but they can't maximize it because they're offsetting their costs monthly, and they're getting nothing back for what they have on their roofs from the utility once a year, here you go. Here's some 70% of your heating load should be, you know, 120-degree water. Why do we need a fossil fuel banging off 180, 190? Turn that on when it's 20 degrees and colder out.
Yep.
So you got to play the game. You got to understand what the costs are. Ask your homeowner, what do they spend it? And then see how you can save them energy dollars.
Yeah, I think operating costs.
Remember this, 82% versus 100% efficient. You
Or
figure
less.
how much you're losing. Well, what I'm saying is, I'm being generous.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm being generous with fossil.
And Chris, you're 100% right. The focus is, you know, I don't know if 100% of the focus is operating costs, but if you want to talk about operating costs, you know, let's be real, you know, to Anthony's point, we've been oversizing the crap out of everybody's house for the last God knows how many years. So why are we talking about, why are we concerned about the operating costs? If we really were, we would have been sizing these systems properly and putting in the right equipment, you know. The short cycling over time, you know, those are all jacking up energy costs or operation costs. So it's definitely a huge conversation, Chris, and I agree with you. Totally.
It's going to get emotional.
Oh, absolutely. Again, you know, when you're talking about operating costs as well, or any type of cost, anytime you bring in money into it, you got to see the value, right? And we're not saying that this is going to replace every single application, because we got to be smart. You know, I think there's a second side to this conversation, you know, whether it be the electric boilers or even a air to water heat pump or air source heat pumps in general. We're talking about providing energy, right? But the other side of that is holding on to the energy, right? And that's weatherizing the house, you know? So it's always great. I remember there were some programs going back, maybe I'm talking maybe 15, 20 years ago, where there were some opportunities to upgrade your boiler. There were some programs out there, but in order to upgrade the boiler, you had to upgrade the home. Make sure that was good first, you know, because it makes no sense to put a high efficient boiler in and still lose the same BTUs out every window and crack and everything else in the home. So there's, I think, multiple conversations here today. Obviously, we focus on the boiler side of it, but, you know, the whole house should be brought up to speed, you know, and that's part of the local 197 is not just replacing the equipment, but bringing the whole building up to speed. So. Good to see our friend James is with us today. That's awesome. Thanks for joining us, James. So again, so this is the mid-size TS. You can see a wide range everywhere from 34,000 up to 184,000 BTUs. Piping size changes, elements change, right? We go from 4 to 6 elements in the system, depending on the boiler. So a lot of cool stuff here. The one thing I wanted to point out, this is probably my favorite part. I don't know why, but let me see if I pop this up. But right where that mouse is in the center of the screen, you kind of see this little switch that I'm on right there. You know, that's the field selector switch, right? So this gives the homeowner the opportunity, you know, they're not just set to oil, you know, or they're not just set to electric. They can choose which fuel they want to utilize. So if they want to save some oil and they want to go 100% electric, it's in the homeowner's hands, not yours, not mine. So I think that's pretty cool. People want control, you know, so it definitely is pretty wild to have that. Anything you want to comment on in this series? Anything you want to bring up?
180-degree temperature. I mean, there is modulation, there is staging, so 160 there. You know, if you're a radiant guy, I mean, all of a sudden this is, wow, getting smaller, dialing in your BTUs for what you need. You know, it's just, yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. But the sizes are allowing us to get smaller and more focused on what the loads are, as opposed to just beating the hell out of it with, you know, bigger is better approach. That shit's got to go out the window. Yeah. And we need to do better at it and believe it. If you're not a heat loss guy, and I tell everyone, I get it, do your own house. Because this winter, when you hear your boiler banging off on short cycling and you wonder why and you think that's normal and that's good, it isn't. Yeah. It kills everything and it takes money out of your pocket and throws it out the window.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, we're going to start talking too as these things go further. And I don't know about the boiler side of the world, but definitely the air and the water. And John, yes, we definitely are. When we start talking about the air to water, we're going to start to see in our territory here some air to water rebates coming into play. Hopefully sooner than later. It's a discussion and get them worked into the new program. But as these rebate programs come in, load calc is huge. And they're watching guys now. There's been some people taking advantage of the air source programs. Jacking up their manual J's to cover the cost of the job. And the utilities are watching it now. So those are the guys that are out there kind of manipulating the system to get more money. They're going to be in trouble. So you want to do a true manual J, and we fit the proper appliance to that application. We don't want to take a boiler and put something where it's not going to work. So sizing it, and Chris, that's an awesome goal. I see you have that in the chat there. Trying to get things right, and that's what it is. It's not downsizing; it's putting the right application and the right product in that application. So and doing the math is always going to come on top.
Listen, we are big on air source as far as what we product line is Fujitsu. You have to be realistic. Refrigerant, you're going to run out of BTUs delivered. So what do you do for a backup? And if they're friendly to the earth and they got PV, solar, and things are renewable in their homes, because that's the way people were sold that, it's a -15 heat pump and you should be more than fine when it's 9 degrees out at night and you're not keeping up with the house. Where do you go to? Because someone said to get rid of that fossil fuel. Well, now you have an option. You can just trickle charge a little high temperature into maybe some existing hydronics in the house. Don't rip it out. Understand the power of keeping something, but all right, maybe it is the fossil fuel. Leave it, or now I have this new thing called Electro, and then I can bang off of the solar panels that I, usually just offset my monthly costs, the year rebates.
Yeah, it's definitely an education, and it's awareness, and that's what I hope this is. And it'd be good to have this recorded and put this in the hopper, because this is, most guys are not aware that these products are out there, especially when we start talking about the air and water. And the conversations have been really fun for me. And I know, Anthony, you've had some good conversations. When you have a contractor, looking to position their business, maybe to adapt to heat pumps, right? And I think a lot of us associate just when you hear heat pump, you think about refrigerant, and I don't know about you guys, I like the refrigerant side, but I like water. Water hasn't changed. Water's been the same.
Power of water.
All these years, right? We can get more BTUs than we can through a duct, right? So there's definitely some cool stuff we can do there. But before we get into that topic, this is a cool little addition, this little zoning control that can go on the TS series, the standard. This is something that gets installed in the boiler, and it gives us a lot of different options here. We can set up that priority zone for 180 if we're talking about an indirect water heater, and then we got our low temp for the radiant. We can do that just like any other boiler, but we can do it with dual temperatures. We're typically, oil fired, yeah, we can give you a take-o zone control with a priority, but you're based off of one temperature. So that's the difference. Here, why exhaust all that energy if I only need a low temp like in my radiant system? So as you can see, it says there, dial in a BTU per zone, which is really, really cool. So right up here, if we can get this right. So right up here, right where this little laser pointer is, hopefully you guys can see that at the top of the board. So right up there, you'll see some dials, little red guys right there. So right here, we have the ability to kind of dial in the system, and like it says there, going for 15 tells me that's a 15,000 BTU zone. It might be a 20,000 BTU boiler or bigger. If I dial it into 15,000, anytime that zone calls, the boiler is not going to give you any more energy than that 15,000 BTUs. So we can really adapt the boiler to the zoning, which is pretty wild, and that's something we have never been able to do. So that's going to be that. So we also have the addition of what we call a boiler staging control, right? So if we do get in, and sometimes, when we get into these larger homes, instead of selecting a larger boiler, it might be better to go with some smaller boilers here, where we can now put them together. We can do 2 boilers to a control, right? Then we can do up to 5 stages. So that's pretty wild. 5 little boilers there, that would be pretty wild. I'd like to see that. So yeah, each control will be able to handle 2 boilers, and then every 5 minutes, as you can see here, we kind of go through the staging with the system as needed. So we're only adding the 4 BTUs that we need, not just firing everything off at once. So anything you want to comment on here on the staging?
No, the modulation though, man, you think about the BTUs and turn down here and like the state, like it's just, this is pretty powerful stuff. It really drives, the mechanical room gets smaller and smaller around us as we're challenging. I think some of the last things that we consider or we don't focus on is the venting for fossil. And that's the thing that's most the liability per se. People can get hurt, and if we do it wrong, he who touched it last. So man, there's just, you know, the remoteness of this too, you know, where do we get fuel delivered? How do we have what's available? And now electricity, you know, can be our option, our friend as well. So
yeah, and I see it.
Don't dismiss all options. That's all we're saying. Don't dismiss this because it's electric. Yeah. You know, you have to consider all the factors. That's all.
Yeah, just to touch on what James was commenting on with the breaker size, you know, I think that's a huge, you know, obviously that's going to be part of the conversation is, you know, how much energy do I need to input into the machine and what breakers and all of that. And that's a conversation. And don't just, and to your point, you know, dismissing it because, you know, maybe the panel currently isn't sufficient to add this boiler.
Right.
But a homeowner, if they want what they want, they're going to get it, you know, whether it's through you or somebody else. And we had a job, I want to say maybe a year ago. It was pretty interesting because the contractor was new to electric boilers, and this was a lead that came down through, you know, Electro. The homeowner requests that he wants electric. He wanted an electric boiler, ripped out the gas or the oil, whatever was in the home, and that's what he wanted. He had the solar for it, you know, he didn't have the panel for it. He had an electrician come in, but he already dismissed the job, basically saying that if the panel's not good, it's going to be too expensive to get a panel. There's no way this guy's going to go for it. He's got to bring in more power to the home. Right. Well, guess what? In the weeks to come, the homeowner reached out to an electrician. They had PSE and G come in. They upgraded the power coming into the home. They added more power. He paid whatever he paid. That's up to him. But he got the power and then called the contractor back and said, all right, I upgraded my panel. When can you come do the boiler? And he was just in shock that this guy went through all those measures, but that's going to be the norm, you know? And there are some rebates out there. I know if you're adding a heat pump, which is electric to your home, there's infrastructure rebates out there for a homeowner to upgrade their panel, you know? So that might fit in with the boilers. I'm not 100% sure. It's something I would look into, but if somebody wants something, they're going to get it.
So to add, I mean, it just leads into another side of the approach, right? If you have fossil fuel, but the panel is, so what if we fit to the panel and whatever BTUs we get to use the electric at 100% efficiency, and that might be not 80% of our heating load for the winter, it might only be 60, 65%. Right. So now you're using the more efficient because fitting into the panel, and then we turn on the fossil fuel sometimes for hours at a time.
Yeah.
When the temperature drops outside, we'll go back to electric. Some of our boilers, they have a simple breaker or a bypass right on the front panel. Consider it oil, consider it electric. That's how easy it is for the homeowner to switch from one to the other.
Yeah, and I think that comes into that what Chris was commenting on the operating costs. You know, you want to keep the cost down, you know, depending on the fuel you're using, where, yeah, maybe in the colder temperatures, natural gas is the cheaper option. Right. Well, that's to your point. You know, you can run that boiler where the electric's better, and then when you get down into those colder temps, you know, now we kick it over to the gas and all that stuff. You know, we do have, and I'm going to have a little plug in there too. But Electro's got a nice app. You know, download that app.
Yeah, we discussed a little bit of that behind the scenes. Yes.
Yeah, you get in there and
fuel
kind of
comparison.
compare. So, you know, electric to oil and all of that stuff. So it's definitely a pretty cool app. So we'll talk about that.
You will have to know what local pricing is, and this way you can compare apples to apples.
Yeah, yep. We love those conversations. So this is another cool product. You know, we're gonna get our hands on one of these eventually. Try and get this in our own training room to take care of our radiant room and all that. So our radiant floor heating and stuff, and our snow melt as well. Yeah. So this is the EZB Edge. So we have the Edge and the Echo. The Edge comes with this nice little touch screen you see at the bottom corner of the screen. Very cool, very interactive. You can kind of see everything that's going on within the system and control it. What I think the best part of this is a complete package. Everything but a feed valve, right? So you put this thing on a wall.
Connections.
What's that?
More connections.
More connections, right. So you go put this thing on the wall, you add a feed valve, supply return, and you're done.
I'm going to start one up after we leave. Right,
Is that where you go to start?
Mhm.
So yeah, the Easy B Edge is definitely a fun boiler. Again, being able to have these priorities from zones and designate, in order what zone has priority on itself, definitely pretty cool. Comes in two different, you see the 4-zone and the single zone controller. So if you're using external zoning controls, like a takeover relay or something, you can go with that single zone controller. We just need an end switch to come back to it saying that there's a call for heat. But then the 4-zone control gives you the ability to do a combination too, which I thought was cool, of either zone valves or circulators. So if you got, a combination of those on your job, you don't need 2 separate relays at that point, which is pretty wild. So
2 things just to point out. There is no combi per se, right? Can we do domestic? Yes. Indirect storage? Yes, right? We do have an onboard circulator. This doesn't necessarily need to be primary, secondary, but it can be. So again, like any appliance, we're worried about the flow through the vessel. So that's what we're taking care of. But that circulator can do, depending on the design, maybe the house, the zones, the radiant, whatever we want, right? So the largest 20 kW is roughly 68,000 BTUs. That's a good chunk of most people's homes from there on. Right. So I pitched this yesterday on a radiant design. I did a walkthrough. They wanted me to look at the boiler. If they built a thermos of a house now, spray foam, and they have a gas 250,000 BTU boiler in there. I did a load. It's like maybe 48,000 BTU. So they don't trust numbers. They look at what's there. Like the whole approach is you need to get comfortable and understanding what Rick said earlier. My design is probably 30% fudge in that number. So that safety's in the number when you do it. And I jokingly said, unless you want to heat your neighbor's house and the neighbor behind him and do all the snow melt for the neighborhood, leave the boiler, But the truth is the homeowner is getting savvy, he's building his home, and he's all energy efficient. It's amazing to walk from one side under construction and how sound changed. I noticed that walking from one half to the other, all of a sudden I got real cool. Yeah, so I said, you guys are building a thermos. You don't need what you think you need here.
Yeah.
So an opportunity to sell them. And again, the venting, that a big old V vent going up through the middle of someone's bedroom. And the guys lit up and I said, yeah, you can get rid of that stack. And he's like, what? So,
yeah, it's pretty
neat
wild
stuff.
And even on the water heating side, we're seeing more and more of the air source, heat pump water heaters, so you pair that with this, they're staying electric, definitely some cool options. Keep the domestic standalone, at that point.
Be prepared because people are going to ask, and don't dismiss it because you don't know anything about it. Get involved. ElectroMD.com is their website. It's awesome. MN, sorry. MN, yes. I wish it was MD.
Yeah.
Medical.
So here we're just talking, and this is just a quick slide, but I'm not going to get deep into the industrial. We're going to move on to the air and water, but just keep it in the back of your head. There is some boilers. We go from, like I said, 1 kW on a mini all the way up to 1 million BTUs, right? So, whatever that project is, if we do get into the industrial side, you can do anything, whatever that application is. There's some good stuff out there, but sometimes, like I said, I like redundancy. You might be able to stage 3 or 4 boilers to take the place of one of these, so there's some options out there. If you're into the commercial and industrial world, we do have an option for you.
Yeah, NYC right now is going gangbusters with local law 97, and that's all about electrification. So we are providing solutions on another level within Wales Darby. Our engineering and commercial is delivering that stuff. So there will be, and they have been selling the industrial, 1 million BTUs powered by electric, and they're going to grow that, I think, upwards to 3 million, 2 at least. I'm not sure if 3's there, but yeah, that's like, wow.
It's crazy,
especially 100%.
Especially the conversations we're hearing lately, where New York City's not going to allow R32 refrigerant. Right? That's going to be a game changer for us, as far as seeing and having these other options out there. Refrigerant's not going to be allowed in certain areas. So water is, water is not going to be, thrown out the building anytime soon. So that's where these products are all going to be, I think, valuable tools for everybody out there. So, as we get into the heat pump boilers now, we're talking about the NorAir product. This is a pretty cool one. We're definitely seeing some growing numbers. We're hearing about this stuff more and more, not just on a boiler and a makeup air side, but the conversations for air to water are definitely picking up. You got some jobs out there, you know, on some other product lines as well. But again, this is contractors training, you know, awareness. You know, every time we do an air to water class, there's multiple people that this is the first time they've ever heard of a product like this. You know, I've had plumbers looking to transition their building to heat pumps, and then I offer this product, and it's like, when did this come out? You know, these things have been around for many, many, many years. So, you know, now it's, you know, like it says on the screen there, right? Lack of awareness throughout the industry. So hopefully stuff like this, these webinars help you guys, you know, get a little better understanding. So when we say air to water heat pump, it looks something like this. So this could be a typical layout. We're going to give you what you see on the left-hand side there. That's going to be our vessel. That's going to be and there's options here too. We'll talk about it a little bit more. But basically the magic of this is this coaxial coil that's a refrigerant to water heat exchanger, right? We give you that. The outdoor unit is by others. Right? That's your choice. You know, who's the heat pump manufacturer you like working with? You know, we'll plug in our friends over there at Bosch. You know, they're pretty popular in this world, you know, with the air to water. So they've done Electro in general. They've done some testing with the Bosch system. You're going to see some performance stuff in a few minutes, but this is a cool little product. You know, we put our outdoor unit, run some refrigerant lines to the indoor unit, which means there's no water piping going outdoors. So in this case, there's no glycol in this system, you know, which I thought was pretty wild. And then we do have the ability, you know, if you have the boost that you need, or you don't have another boiler, or you get rid of the fuel altogether, you have the option to throw an electric boiler in this platform. And now you get that, you know, little boost for the heat pump itself. You know, maybe you go with a non-inverter. You know, we prefer the inverter. That's where you maximize your efficiency. But if you are doing a different, you know, by others, you know, whatever heat pump, maybe it's not as efficient down in those single digits and 20s, where now we can boost it a little bit with this electric boiler. So this is definitely, I think, something that's going to pick up, you know, in the future months, and we'll see where that goes. Yeah, let you handle that. But definitely a cool little product here. So when we talk about, here's a little control picture. You can see the option there for the electric boiler and a 10, 15, and 20 kW platforms there. Outdoor ranges, you know, as far as tonnage goes, 3, 4, and 5 tons. We're talking 100. Anytime we hear air to water heat pumps, just try to keep that 120 number in your head. You know, could we do a little bit higher? Probably, but most of your applications is going to be 120. I'd say 100 to 120 degrees. It's going to be the sweet spot there. But you can see the BTU ranges that we can hit, from 36,000 to 68,000 BTUs. And I think that's going to cover most, if not all, of the common residential homes. Obviously, if we get it into these little McMansions and everything else, you know, we might have to do some zoning there. We'll see what happens. But definitely a cool little product. Definitely having fun with it. This is the heat-only version, so there is no cooling provided from this piece of equipment. It's going to be heat pump only with the electric boiler. If we want to add the cooling side to it, right, it kind of looks like this. So this is going to be the heating and cooling system. It's the same layout, right? It's the same coaxial coil. There is the electro boiler inside there, so that's another addition. You're going to find, you know, additions to this, I would say, are what, the more insulated. You're going to find it because now we're pumping some chilled water through that, you know, through the coil.
Anything and everything exposed can be subject to condensing.
Right, so whether your valves, everything. There is a bypass though, so we're not putting chilled water through the actual boiler vessel. You know, you can kind of see that from this diagram up here. You know, you can see here it comes out of my coil. If we're going to chilled water mode and going to cooling, we're going to go out the bottom of the boiler. We're not going to even touch the boiler. Whereas if we're heating, it's going to divert up through the electro boiler and out the top. So you're going to have basically a chilled water or heating and cooling outlet, and then you're going to have your return. So it's a pretty simple system as far as the piping diagram goes. We see the addition now bringing in a buffer tank, right? So that's our thermal storage. So we're going to start to make some BTUs, store them in that tank. You can see leaving this tank, and we're going to feed our low mass, you know, or our radiant, you know, low temp. Thank you. I thought the diagram was pretty cool. You see a low temp air handler here, and they're taking that off of the top of the unit, you know, before it gets to the buffer tank. So that's giving you an opportunity to take the hottest temperatures right out of the machine itself, not from the thermal storage, and throw it out into the space.
Can you go back 2 slides for me, please? So the visual. Yep. So The visual to the right is really just understanding that is a non-communicative, no need for communication.
Yep.
It is a standard heat pump, all right? So we play nice with those, not necessarily needing to be connected, third wire if you want to set, it's just a signal. Think of this as geothermal without having a geofield. That's what the coaxial coil does for us. Low temperature. If you need to boost it up, you can get the option of the electric boiler built in. You can select the KW. You don't have to go bigger is better. We need to figure out what the balance point is. If we have the specs on an outdoor condenser heat pump, we know it's good down to X and it produces X amount of BTUs. What is now needed to boost when it gets colder out, then that heat pump can actually provide comfort to the space. All right, there's the magic. There's the understanding of what we have, what actually it will produce. A little CYA goes a long way, but we don't need to kill it and do the neighbor's house and the neighbor behind their house. Okay?
Well, to touch on John's too, like you said, non-communicating. We don't necessarily need, and that's why we mentioned the Bosch name. We have the Westinghouse, we have a unit there that we can potentially use. They're non-communicating and they are inverter, right? So they don't need a communication from the indoor unit, yet you're still going to get the benefits of the inverter drive. So that's what you're going to look for there.
And just one other thing, I don't know if the next one slide. No, this can also be incorporated with, if needed, a choice of fossil fuel.
Yeah.
With our control strategy, we can pull in that existing cast iron, whatever. So you can leave it and have an option for in-house boiler and the electric boiler built in, run that heat pump. Now I either go electric, let it trickle charge, 100% efficient. Oh, that is small, can only take us so much further. Then I bang off on the fossil fuel. So again, here's this redundancy and choices and backup. One goes down, I have this. Another one goes down, I have that. So, it's really kind of expansion if you have those needs. Really quite cool.
And I think, the addition of a boiler, yeah, there might be an expense to it. And when I say boiler, the addition of the boiler in the actual box.
More air.
So the more air. If we were to get the boiler option, maybe you don't need it. And maybe, especially if you go with inverter systems, there's a good chance that inverter system, and you can see here the performance at the bottom here, this is based off of an inverter system. Just look at the numbers that we get in here. When we get down to, 5 degrees, on an inverter, we're still getting 37,000 BTUs out of this system, right? On a 5-degree day. Even 28,000 BTUs on a 0-degree day. Like I said, I got a 1,200 square foot, 34,000 BTU load. I'm 34,000 based on the load count, in the software that I use. But knowing that I have that fudge factor in there's a good chance this inverter at 28,000 is going to cover my home all the way down to 0 degrees.
Zero.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
But having that addition of the backup boiler, to Anthony's point, God forbid, and I said it before, redundancy. I love redundancy. God forbid something happened to that outdoor unit, right, and it can't do what it needed to do, or it failed. That kind of backup happens seamlessly. You don't even know it, but it's going to switch over to heat pump and go right to the electric.
Internally, it sees the differential.
Yeah, again, I might be running for a couple of days off the electric boiler, but I'm still providing heat to the home.
Right, nobody knows.
Exactly. And maybe I do have an indirect, which you're not seeing in the diagram. I want to put an indirect on this guy, and utilize that 20 kW boiler inside there. Well, if there is a call for domestic hot water, it's going to turn off that heat pump 100% and just dedicate that electric boiler to my domestic hot water. So if we're integrating all of that stuff, we definitely put together a pretty cool package.
Now we could do heat pump condenser to a electric boiler as a preheater. I'm trying to think if we maximize what our BTUs, dollars per BTUs on an outdoor unit. If we trickle charge 100-degree water or something, we're off the buffer tank, it's just.
Yeah, you just got to separate the domestic from
right.
heating, but yeah, maybe it's an addition.
Well, we saw an indirect tank the other day, remember?
Yeah.
We saw our multi-coil, indirect, multi-tapping.
There's some cool options out there.
I think we're going to see the rebirth of a buffer tank.
Yeah.
Buffer tanks were kind of needed early in condensing gas boilers because they didn't have the turn down. So we use the vessel, not short cycle. So now we do have the turn down, and buffer tanks have kind of needed were no more needed.
Yeah, and it's to your point, that's what, that one project that I'm working with now, that's what they're doing. It's an air to water system, but they have the Will McLean Gold oil system. And this is going to need glycol. So adding the glycol for this air to water system, we don't want it to get into that Will McLean and ruin any of the O-rings and sections there and anything else. So that's where these buffer tanks, we found one with a coil within a tank, and it's pretty wild, And I've seen guys kind of make up, Frankenstein their own indirect water heater to become a buffer tank per se, So there's some things out there, and we got some good products. It's just a matter of, being aware of what's out there. Let me just get past this. This restarting on me.
Gentlemen, how are we doing? You picking up anything new? Eyes are opening, ears are.
Yeah, hopefully this is opening your eyes a little bit. It's a good conversation starter, like we said. Those of you locally to us, we'd love to have you in a room and introduce you to the product and show you some of the parts and pieces that we do have. You can see this thing right in front of your face. So we'll stay tuned. We'll have a date out in the next couple of weeks here and get some things going. So just briefly, I just wanted to touch on the air side of things. Again, this is something we'll do in a full training, but this was I think it was a sleeper for us. And again, driven by code, we're seeing a lot more. And I know, from my understanding, the codes have changed a little bit where, it was basically anything 500 CFMs or more, whatever makeup air, we had to replace it, right? If we're ripping it out, pulling it out of the home, building or whatever it is, you got to replace that air. And now, just looking at having this conversation yesterday and just kind of, looking at the code, I know New York City, it's not about a CFM number now. Now it's about any air that you're taking out of the home, you have to replace with makeup air, So, if you're taking out 200 CFM, you got to replace it with 200 CFM. And it was good that this customer that I'm working with, this contractor, he's educated enough. He's on the air side. He does air conditioning, ductwork. He's really a duct guy. And he was presented this job in New York City where it's an art studio. And they're using oil-based paint, so they just want to get an exhaust fan and just pull the air out so they don't smell it. And he's explaining to them, and again, education and having a conversation about makeup air in the past, he's explaining to them, well, if you're just put an exhaust fan in here, you need to replace that air you're pulling out. It's got to come from somewhere, the building's going to become negative at that point, and there's going to be some issues, right? So they're not understanding on how airflow moves or works really. And now it's becoming a code question. They want to do it to code. Well, they want to put it's an 1,800 square foot space that needs like 1,200 CFM, of air removal. Well, now they're going to put in this makeup air package system that's small. 1,200 CFMs is going out. We'll be able to match whatever that fan speed is and bring that air in. And what's pretty cool about this is we can condition it. And I believe that picture was your job site, correct?
Yes, it is.
So this is one of your jobs you've been at. So, this is one out in the field, and the larger systems, the 12 through and coming soon up to 2,000 CFMs of makeup air, that sits in a pretty small package. It's no different than a regular air handler you put in a home. The differences are from some of our competitors is this is in one box, it's one package. You're getting the interlock there, your damper is built in, you're getting your filtration, you're getting your heating, you will be able to temper the air and bring it as it's coming into the home, right? We're watching it with supply and return sensors, so we can do a lot in one little box. And for our competitors, they might be able to do it, but when it's all said and done and put together and all bolted together, we're talking about a 13-foot train, basically, you're trying to find room for. So, don't if you have these opportunities with makeup air, and when we talk about it, you think about the homes that are being built on Long Island and our footprint. You see these kitchens with these commercial grade draft hoods and everything else, and the gas fireplaces. If you're taking air out of a home, it needs to be replaced. It's simple as that. And this is definitely a good solution.
Yeah, this is code compliant because of the built-in heater below 50 degrees. That's when we use that element. We talk about a filter that's really just for particulates coming in from outside, bugs, so forth. So protecting the inner workings of this makeup air. Yeah. Just interlocking is quite cool in multiple facets, not just the largest exhaust. I mean, we can do multiple, and I think we discussed the CT.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah,
I don't want to step on Rick's
you're
slideshow.
good.
So CT is a technology where we are actually monitoring the switch at the appliance, high, medium, low. We see a voltage draw, we respond to that, and we signal back to our unit turning on, increasing CFM. You're exhausting more, we're going to increase more. So it kind of plays nice with all things in the house. So multiple dryers, multiple fart fans, as I call them, you know, homes on east end of Long Island where a troll is roughly, you know, you get 12, 17 bathrooms in a house. It gets a little crazy. So they have a lot of exhaust issues, and you know, so we're here to offset and drive some comfort back into people's lives.
Absolutely. Yeah, be able to, and there's multiple ways you can duct these, whether you're going into the return of the system, you direct ducting them. There's some things we got to be cautious of, you know, and that's all things that we will cover in another training.
Cool.
So that's the makeup air. So we wanted to spotlight that by itself. And then when you're talking about the air side, there's a lot of cool little products here. And again, we'll save this for a full training, but you know, from duct heaters to plenum heaters, you know, there's just so many different products within the Electro, you know, portfolio, I guess you can call it, you know, on that air side where, you know, some of them just make sense, you know, it's, you know, you're finding those rooms, you know, that, you know, extended duct work, just not getting the BTUs there. There's no fan driven in its duct heater, but, you know, if I got to add some BTUs to a run, you know, we're able to do that with maybe a separate thermostat or sensor in a room, you know, to kind of drive it. You know, opened my eyes the last couple of weeks, you know, having Dennis Schrammel from Electro in town and having some fun with him, running around meeting contractors and stuff. Definitely saw some cool opportunities to throw these products in and why they make sense. And again, it all comes down to, I think Chris made that comment earlier about operating costs and, you know, again, we're trying to pull the efficiencies out of everything we touch, you know, and where it makes sense and where it doesn't, you know, those are conversations. So just making you guys aware of what's going on out there and what we do have available. That's really the goal for today. I mentioned this earlier, right? So there's an HVAC calculator, whether you have an Apple iPhone or you got an Android device, there is an app you can download, go to your, you know, whatever your store is on your phone, look up Electro HVAC calculator. You'll be able to compare some stuff. There is a BTU calculator, energy costs, all of that stuff, you know, where you'll be able to see, you know, what is that payback? What is the break-even point? And again, to our point, you know, we were saying earlier, you know, you might not be ripping out this entire system. This might be an addition. You know, what is that operating cost, you know, for most of the year? You know, and it might make sense then. It might not make sense to do it the entire year, but if we could definitely pick those little pockets and make the system more efficient, I think that'd be awesome. So like we were saying earlier, we do record these webinars. They will be thrown into the, I guess, our little playlist here. There's multiple videos from way back when we started doing these. Some got cleaned up, some redundant videos, you know, but there's a lot of education on this website. It's at your hands, you know, please utilize it. Any other questions coming in as we wrap up here?
It's just the one thing about the handout determining cost per X, you know. Chris, I'm not really sure which handout you're referring to, unless you're talking about the app. Handouts determining cost per X is a bit confusing. A review on how to use it would be helpful.
Yeah, I think that's something we can definitely go over and when we do our full training. You know, because there is some charts. Maybe that's what you're seeing is the charts in the back of that catalog. You know, when you're looking at the different costs and stuff like that. The calculator, I would say, you know,
yeah, maybe try calculator.
Basically, those charts are built into the calculator, so it's a lot easier to, you know, answer a couple questions, throw it in there, and then get a better answer. So
go back to the slide to the app. Maybe there you go.
Yeah.
That's the only picture, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you have a couple tabs here to click on, and maybe this would be a clarification. If you're not Electro HVAC calculator in your app store, it's fairly new. I think they have some feedback, so if there's some bugs they're still working out, but they used to have just a slide chart, and here, whenever we handed them out, we always had to flip them over with a double-sided slide chart. So, you know, we keep talking about locally, you know, we had Electro with their travel trailer, and it was pretty impressive to have guys come through. We did a little training, and then we actually brought them up in the trailer and kind of have the product, you know, in their face. And I think it really proved a lot of, you know, outcome. People now have their eyes wide open and thinking these are options. On the air side as well, and then of course the electric hydronics.
Yeah, and Henry, to the maintenance point, really, it's pretty funny because there's no combustion analysis. There is no brushing your boiler. There's no venting issues you got to look at, intake air problem. There's none of that. Your maintenance on a hydronic or electric boiler, or even the air to water, is no different than what you should be doing on the high efficiency equipment, the boilers you're doing now. And that's water maintenance, right? That's it. There's nothing to clean on the boiler. There's nothing to touch on the boiler. It's water quality.
Dust
right?
it off.
So if you got, inhibitors or whatever you would do with your high efficiency hydronic system, as far as, throwing them in the system and making sure the water quality is where it needs to be, that's your maintenance. There is nothing else.
20-year warranty vessel and element on residential. I mean, that says a lot about their confidence in their product.
Yep.
Second to none. I didn't say second to none. It sounds a little cliche, but you call them, they pick up the phone. I mean, it's pretty powerful to see their customer service.
Yeah, Tony up there is probably one of the best when it comes to technical.
Oh, don't dismiss Dean now.
Dean is the man.
Good. And Dennis, he's
all right.
He's Dennis. Right. He's a salesman.
But yeah, no. So Henry, the maintenance on these there's nothing on the physical boiler that you got to maintain. It's really the hydronic system is what you're maintaining. Checking pH levels, whatever you would do on water, for water quality on any other hydronic system is going to be the same for us. There's nothing on the boiler side itself. The cost of operating radiant heat system from electric, to fuel, heat radiant floors versus electric radiant system.
Yeah.
That's a good question. It depends on the system, I guess.
Install cost, I would imagine. It's 100% efficient, but again, what's the square footage, right? So I don't even know, what is the expectancy for electric radiant? Does it last forever? Okay, so PEX tubing, what's the challenges? Does it have to be so far and all of a sudden have 4 inches of concrete? I don't know all the ins and outs on the electric radiant. It provides BTUs.
I was going to say, one of the cool things with, circulator would be your hardest thing, right? Is getting one to pump low enough for some of those small little zones that you would do electric radiant in. And maybe cost of installing electric radiant might sound good initially, and it might be cheaper to put the electric radiant system in and also operate it. But what's the longevity of it? At this point, if one of those elements inside that electric radiant goes bad, now what? Now you're ripping a floor up to redo it. You put tubing in the ground and put hydronic water through it, the chances of that getting compromised after the installation is done is pretty slim, unless somebody's driving nails through your floor, there's, the tubing itself isn't going to get compromised like that. It's kind of protected and encompassed in that floor. So, I would go with the hydronic all day, but if we're just talking based on operating or cost, that's a tough conversation.
Listen, it could be a house on stilts, and I'm concerned about maybe freezing of hydronics, and therefore the electric makes sense. So you got to balance out what the application, the size, maybe what is actually required.
Expectations too.
Right.
So hopefully that answered both of your questions there. Like I said, you have and I'm going to throw it up real quick. You get our contact information here as well. Feel free to reach out to us if you have questions. You got our email out there as well. If you are going to take the phone number and send us a question, please do us a favor. Send us a text message first with who you are, where we met, obviously the webinar this morning. But just send it so we can save your information. You're more in tune to get a response quicker when we know who we're talking to.
First name, last name, who you work for, and where we met.
Not an insurance person calling me or something like that.
I love those phone calls. You call me if you're insurance. Please, I want to talk to you. I got a house.
You got our info there. Please don't forget the handouts, some good information there, at least the catalog. Kind of review that. If there's some products you see or you want more info on, you can always reach out to us. We can help you out there. So we're about 8:45. We're done with timing. So
any other questions, please let us know. Certainly, thank you for your time this morning. I hope you learned one or two things, all right? Do the math, understanding the power. We need to provide BTUs. Oversizing does not get it done for us anymore.
That's it. All right. So with that, thank you, Jeff. Appreciate you. Seeing some comments in there. No more questions. So appreciate you guys spending the time with us today.
Check out the webinar tomorrow.
Yep.
ElectroMN.com.
11 a.m. If you're on the East Coast, go to the website, register. You can also go to Wales Darby for our future. We got a couple more of these webinars left before we end up the season. Other than that, I think we're good. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank y'all.